Hello, Groundwater Symposium attendees, and welcome to the Spring Creek Watershed. I've prepared this short video to tell you about the Spring Creek Watershed Atlas website development project. The classic definition of an atlas is a collection of maps that have traditionally been bound in book form. But the web atlas for the Spring Creek Watershed is in multimedia format using hypertext, hyperlinks, audio, and video files. Barb Fisher, a longtime resident of the watershed, came up with the concept to have an atlas for the watershed. And this concept was supported strongly by the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, and they created a work group. And currently this work group has created a whole list of articles under various topics that we want to appear in the web atlas. We're out recruiting volunteer authors right now, and we're reviewing and posting articles that we receive. This 35-year-old cartoon by Jim McClure represents the boundaries of the Spring Creek watershed by the sides of the bathtub, and the metaphorical shower heads represent all the sources of contamination of our groundwater, which provides more than 99% of our drinking water source. So the shower heads illustrate truck accidents on highways and spills, illegal dumping, home septic system failures, and other sources of contamination. Jim McClure next created this cartoon that illustrates the stress of growing population within the Spring Creek watershed, and it also illustrates that impervious area created by the growing population could turn the big spring into a little drip. And this cartoon also illustrates the fundamental premise of the web atlas, which is that informed citizens make better decisions about their water resources. Our objectives are to help the public understand both the groundwater and surface water resources in the watershed, and highlight our natural features, and describe our existing source water protection safeguards. We want to bolster conservation efforts and suggest future protection needs and identify emerging threats to our groundwater and surface water resources. Our 4 sections in the web atlas describe the nature of the watershed, such as its geology and its groundwater hydrology. And the next section describes the activities of people and our economy in the watershed. Our 3rd section focuses on issues in the watershed, such as stresses or achievements to resolve some of the threats to our water resources. And our final section will be developed for students to provide educational opportunities using the resources within the web atlas site. This map illustrates the geography of the Spring Creek watershed, showing it in relation to the physiographic provinces of Pennsylvania. Here's a larger scale map of the watershed, and down in the left-hand corner of the map, there's a dotted line boundary that shows that the groundwater boundary of the Spring Creek watershed is 23% larger than its surface water boundary. This diagram is in an article that explains why there are 2 boundaries and describes how the drop of water in the center of the diagram, once it infiltrates the soil and moves down to the water table, flows to Big Spring and Bellefonte, and that groundwater piracy is taking surface water that infiltrates from the Spruce Creek surface water watershed and moving it into the Spring Creek groundwater watershed. This Google Earth diagram shows the boundary of the watershed, and each double circle represents a municipal well field, and they're pumping out a total of 16 million gallons a day. The outlined area in red is the Zone 2 of the Harder and Thomas Farm well fields, and the white ellipse shows the ridge overlay zone in Ferguson Township that protects the source water of these two major well fields. This photograph is taken along Interstate 99 and shows a special type of stormwater detention basin where small berms within the basin create a serpentine flow, shown in blue, that promotes additional groundwater recharge before the stormwater can exit the basin. This is a photograph of Interstate 99 where it crosses Spring Creek, and the stormwater coming from the bridge surface that might contain petroleum hydrocarbon from a truck accident on the icy bridge flows through an oil water separator identified in the red square, so that this treated stormwater then flows to Spring Creek with the protection of the special treatment in the separator. And this final map is a hyperlink map, so you click on any of the locations shown on this map and you learn the story of the history of the aquatic habitat improvement activities that have been carried out by Trout Unlimited in the Spring Creek watershed. So this Spring Creek Watershed Atlas project is a public outreach and educational service of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. And if you want more detailed information, you can contact me at my email address that is shown. Because our Web Atlas site is currently under development, it is not accessible at this time on the World Wide Web.